Before we open this box of secrets, hit subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment below telling me what you think really happened. Because this is one of the darkest mysteries in American history, and even after decades, no one knows the full truth. February 25, 1957, a quiet stretch of road outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The winter air hung cold and still over Susquehanna Road. It was the kind of place people rarely stopped unless they had a reason. That morning, a college student named Russell Finkelstein slowed his car near a brushy patch beside the road. He had been checking animal traps he had secretly set, hoping to catch rabbits to sell for extra money. But as he walked toward the brush, something caught his eye. A cardboard box. It was sitting half hidden in the weeds. At first, Russell assumed someone had dumped trash there. It wasn't unusual. Still, something about the box felt wrong. He hesitated. Then he stepped closer. The box was large, about the size used to ship a bassinet. Russell crouched beside it and gently pushed the lid open. What he saw inside made his stomach twist. A small boy, naked, motionless. Russell staggered backward in horror. The child looked to be around 4 or 5 years old. His pale skin was bruised and weathered by the cold. His body had been carefully placed inside the box as if someone had simply discarded him. The student panicked. Afraid he might get in trouble for the illegal traps, he left without reporting what he saw. But 2 days later, another passerby discovered the same box and immediately contacted police. Within hours, detectives from the Philadelphia Police Department arrived at the scene. The discovery stunned them. The boy's body showed signs that he had been cleaned before being left there. His hair had been crudely cut, and even as if someone tried to change his appearance. Even more disturbing, there were no signs of clothing anywhere nearby, no toys, no identification, nothing, just a child in a box. Detective James McGinnis stood silently beside the crime scene tape, staring at the small body being lifted carefully by the medical examiner's team. He had seen murders before, but this felt different. This was a child, someone's son, yet no one had come forward to report him missing. The boy's fingerprints were taken immediately and checked against national databases. Nothing. Police distributed thousands of flyers across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware with the boy's photograph. Newspapers ran front-page headlines asking the public for help. Who is the boy in the box? Tips flooded in. Some callers claimed they recognized the child. Others offered vague suspicions about neighbors or relatives. Detectives chased every lead, but every single one collapsed. The autopsy revealed more unsettling details. The boy was malnourished, suggesting he had suffered neglect before his death. Faint scars marked his body, hinting at possible abuse. But the exact cause of death remained uncertain. There were signs of trauma, yet no clear weapon. It was as if someone had tried to erase every trace of his life. Investigators combed through orphanage records, missing child reports, hospital birth registries, anything that might match the boy's description. Nothing. Weeks turned into months. Then detectives noticed something odd about the box itself. It had once contained a baby bassinet manufactured by the J.C. Penney Company. The shipping label had been partially removed, but investigators managed to trace the model to a batch sold at a store in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. That discovery sparked a new wave of hope. Police interviewed every employee who worked at the store. They tracked down dozens of customers who had purchased the bassinet model. Still, no connection to the boy. Detective McGinnis refused to give up. One evening, sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights of the precinct office, he studied the boy's photograph again. The child had distinctive features, a slightly crooked smile, a cowlick of hair at the back of his head. Someone, somewhere, had to recognize him. Then another strange clue surfaced. A local man came forward claiming he had seen a woman driving near the dump site shortly before the boy was discovered. According to his account, she appeared nervous, stopping briefly near the roadside before speeding away. The description was vague, but it was the first possible sighting of someone connected to the crime. Detectives began canvassing nearby neighborhoods, asking residents if they knew anyone who owned a bassinet box or had recently thrown one away. Again, the trail went cold. But then something even more unsettling emerged. A medical examiner reviewing the case noticed a faint surgical scar on the boy's ankle. It looked like the kind of incision used in certain hospital procedures performed on infants. If that observation was correct, it meant the boy had once been treated in a medical facility, and hospitals kept records. If detectives could trace that surgery, they might finally uncover the child's identity. For the first time in months, investigators felt a spark of hope. But when they began contacting hospitals across Pennsylvania, the results stunned them. No record matched the boy. No doctor remembered performing such a procedure. No hospital had ever admitted a child fitting his description. It was as if the boy had never existed. No birth record. No school registration. No family searching for him. Nothing. Detective McGinnis leaned back in his chair, staring at the growing pile of unanswered questions. Then a fellow officer walked into the room holding a small evidence envelope that had just been re-examined from the crime scene. Inside it was something detectives had nearly overlooked before. A scrap of blanket fabric found inside the cardboard box. At first glance it seemed ordinary. But when investigators examined it closely under better lighting, they noticed something that sent a chill through the room. A distinctive pattern, one that matched blankets distributed to a very specific group of institutions. Institutions that housed children, and when they traced where those blankets had been sent, they discovered something that changed the entire investigation. One of them was located less than 10 miles from where the boy's body had been found. Records showed that this exact type had been distributed to a small number of institutions in Pennsylvania during the early 1950s, places like hospitals, children's homes, and mental health facilities. The room fell silent after she finished speaking. If her story was true, the mystery had just been solved. But there was a problem. Detectives could find no physical evidence supporting her account. No records that the boy had ever lived in that house, no neighbors who remembered seeing him. No hospital reports, nothing. Without proof, her testimony alone wasn't enough to close the case. The DNA lead felt like the first real breath of hope in more than 60 years. Inside a quiet forensic laboratory in Philadelphia, scientists carefully studied the new genetic connection that had appeared in the National Genealogy Database. It wasn't a close relative, but it was enough. A distant cousin, someone connected through a family line that stretched back generations. Detectives immediately began building a family tree. Every name, every birth record, every marriage certificate was traced step by step. The deeper they looked, the more the picture started to form. Eventually, the investigators narrowed their search to one particular branch of the family. It led them to a man who had lived in Philadelphia during the early 1950s. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli, but the detectives weren't looking for him. They were looking for a child connected to him. As the genealogy experts continued mapping the family lines, something strange appeared. Records showed that Joseph Zarelli had a son born in January of 1953, but after that single birth record, the child seemed to vanish. No school records, no medical files, no photographs in public archives, nothing. It was as if the boy had simply disappeared from history. Investigators felt a chill run down their spines. Could this be the same child discovered inside the cardboard box in 1957? To confirm the theory, detectives needed direct DNA comparisons from living members of the Zarelli family. Some relatives agreed to cooperate, others were shocked when they heard why police were contacting them. Most had never heard of the mysterious child discovered decades earlier. For them, the story felt like something pulled from an old newspaper headline, but the science didn't lie. After months of testing and verification, the results finally came back. The unknown boy had a name. After 65 years of silence, the child once known only as the boy in the box was finally identified. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. The announcement stunned the country. News stations across the United States reported the breakthrough. For generations, the boy had been a haunting symbol of an unsolved crime, a nameless child whose story ended in tragedy. Now, at last, the world knew who he was. But the most important question remained unanswered. Who killed him? Investigators began digging deeper into the Zarelli family's history. Old addresses were traced, former neighbors were located and interviewed. Detectives searched for any clue that might explain how Joseph's life had ended in that lonely roadside discovery in 1957. But the trail had grown cold long ago. Most of the adults who had lived in the household during that time were already dead. Those who remained were elderly, their memories blurred by time. Records from the 1950s were incomplete, important documents had been lost, and many people who might have known the truth had taken their secrets to the grave. Still, detectives pieced together fragments of Joseph's life. He had been born into a complicated family situation. Evidence suggested he may have been living in difficult circumstances during his short life. Some investigators quietly believed the child had suffered abuse. Others suspected someone inside the household might have panicked after an accident and tried to hide what happened. But without witnesses or surviving evidence, those theories could never be proven. The person responsible for Joseph's death may never be identified. Yet even without an arrest, the case achieved something powerful. For decades, the small grave marked America's unknown child had been visited by strangers who left toys, flowers, and handwritten notes. People who had never met him still felt connected to the mystery. They mourned for a boy whose name they didn't know. Now, that grave could finally bear the truth. Joseph Augustus Zarelli. A child who lived, a child who mattered, and a child who would no longer be forgotten. On a quiet winter morning in Philadelphia, investigators stood near the cemetery where Joseph was buried. Snow lightly covered the ground, just as it had on the day his body was discovered in 1957. Detective Captain Jason Smith spoke softly to reporters. For 65 years, this boy had no name. Today, we can finally give him his identity back. But he paused before continuing. We still want justice for Joseph. The investigation remains open. Police continue reviewing old evidence, hoping that one day a new witness might reveal the truth. Because somewhere in the past, someone knew exactly what happened to Joseph Augustus Zarelli. And that person never spoke. The road where the box was found is still there today. Cars pass by it every day. Most drivers have no idea that one of America's most haunting mysteries began on that quiet stretch of roadside. But investigators believe the story may not be finished yet. Because sometimes the truth waits patiently in the shadows, and when it finally emerges, it can change history. If you think this story was chilling, remember this: the identity of the boy was hidden for more than half a century. And even now, the person responsible for his death has never been officially named, which means somewhere in the past of this case, the final secret may still be waiting to be uncovered.